Hi, and welcome to Objective 9, Multiplying Polynomials. For this objective, we are going to look at how to successfully multiply one polynomial with another polynomial. If you have a binomial, which means two terms, and here's an example of two terms, and I'm multiplying it by another binomial, you'll see this a lot in algebra, a binomial times a binomial. And the rule is when you do a binomial times a binomial, first, outside, inside, last. The rule that is often used is called FOIL. First, outside, inside, last. And what they're suggesting is basically a consistent system for you to multiply. And if you multiply in this system, in this order, what you're going to notice is that you're always going to be able to get the right answer, and you're not going to forget or lose any terms. So the first one is first. So we have first would be the first terms, and is an x times x, which is an x squared. Okay, then we have the outside first, then we have the outside terms. So there we did the first terms. Now we're doing the outside terms. Okay, and the outside terms is an x times 1, and we get a 1x. Okay, then we do inside. My inside terms are the 9 times the x. I have a positive 9x. And then I do the last two terms, a 9 times a positive 1, and I have a positive 9. Now, I'm almost done. If you notice, my two middle terms have the same last names. Here I have an x. I'll put a 1 here. Here I have a 1x plus a 9x. So if I have 1 apple plus 9 apples, I end up with 10 apples. So in this case, I have terms that can be combined. I have an x squared. I have a 1x and a 9x, which makes a 10x. And then I have a positive 9. Okay, we're going to look at 3 examples of multiplying polynomials. Some of them will use this FOIL method, and others of them will not use this FOIL method. Okay, for our first example, we're going to multiply this monomial here, 3x squared, by a binomial, 2x plus 6. Now, sometimes students will see this parentheses, and it's right next to this parentheses, and they'll say, well, I don't really know what to do. I mean, it's not telling me what to do. It's just one parentheses right beside the other parentheses. Well, the rule is, and I put these red lines here to remind us, hey, when you have a parentheses right next to another parentheses and there's no symbol in between, the implied symbol is that you multiply. And so here's how it works. You're going to take the first term and you're going to multiply it by every term inside the second parentheses. Okay, so when we do that, I have a 3x squared times a 2x. 3 times 2 is 6. X squared times x is x to the third. So that takes care of my first to first. Then I'm going to do my first to the second. 3 times 6 is 18, and it's positive. And then I don't have any variables here, so it's going to be 18x to the second power. Okay, so again, when I multiply the monomial by the binomial, I take this first whole term and I multiply it to both of the terms in my second parentheses. All right, let's look at the second example down here. And again, I have a parentheses right next to another parentheses. Okay, so that's an implied multiplication. It doesn't say it, but it's implied that we're going to multiply. So we're going to do first terms. We're going to use, so it's a binomial times a binomial, so we're going to use our FOIL method. Okay, first, outside, inside, last. Okay, so my first terms are the x times the 6x, and I get a 6x squared. Okay, we're going to multiply now the outside terms, x and the 5y. So I have a 5, and they're both positive, so I'll have a positive 5x times y. Okay, now we're going to do the inside terms. I have a negative 2y times a 6x. So I have a negative 12xy. And then lastly, I'll do my last terms. My negative 2y times a positive 5y is a negative 10y squared. Okay, so looking at this problem, it looks like I have some guys in the middle that have the same last name. They have a 5xy and a 12xy. They have the same last name, so that means I can combine them. So I have a 6x squared is my first term. I have a 5xy, take away 12xy is a negative 7xy. And then lastly, I have my negative 10y squared as my final term for this trinomial. All right. Now you may end up with some problems where, see in this case here, I have a binomial here, but I have a trinomial over here. So just like the first example, you may not have the same amount of terms in each parentheses, and it doesn't matter. So again, the same concept applies. I'm going to take my first term and multiply it to every term inside my second parentheses. Alrighty, so here we go. 2x times x cubed is 2x to the 4th. Okay, 2x times negative 2x is negative 4x squared. And then we have 2x times positive 3 is a positive 6x. Okay, now that I have finished with my first term, multiplying it to every term in my second parentheses, let's take our second term and we're going to multiply our second term by every other term in the second parentheses. Okay, so let's keep going here. I have a negative 7 times x to the 3rd is a negative 7x to the 3rd. I have a negative 7 times a negative 2x. That's a positive 14x. Then I have a negative 7 times a positive 3, which is a negative 21. Alrighty, I'm going to go through and I'm going to see if I have any matching terms. Do I have any terms with the same last name? So let's check this. X to the 4th. Okay, I don't have any other x to the 4th. So he's okay. X squared. Do I have any other x squareds? No. Oh, I have a 6 times x. And here I have a 14 times x. So those we can combine to make 20x. Alrighty, so now we're going to rewrite our polynomial from the highest degree to the smallest degree. So I have 2x to the 4th. I have a degree of 3 here, so let's put that next. 7x to the 3rd. Okay, I have degree 2 here, so minus 4x squared. And then I've got my degree 1 here. I've combined the 6 and the 14 x's. So we have a positive 20x. And then we're going to subtract 21. And there's my final answer. So just a reminder, when you see two parentheses side by side like this, okay, The rule is that you're multiplying. It may not say a multiplication. You may not see a multiplication symbol there, but what you need to tell yourself is, I am multiplying. And then a general rule of thumb is you take the first term and multiply it by everybody else in the second parentheses. If you have multiple terms, you could then take that term and multiply it by everybody in the parentheses. And if, let's say you had a third term, you could take him and multiply him to everyone in the second parentheses. You would end up with 3 plus 3 plus 3. You would end up with 9 terms that you would have to simplify. Okay? So I hope this is helpful, and don't hesitate to send in any questions that you have regarding any of these objectives that you've been learning.